Jackie couldn't hold back a piece of information she says the world needed to know. With emotions boiling over, she revealed something so scandalous that guests were left gasping, jaws hitting the floor, and even the bride herself reportedly trembling with disbelief. The accusation that Brandi, someone Jennifer thought was just a part of her circle, may actually be carrying a baby belonging to none other than Jennifer's own fiancé. The crowd didn't know whether to cry, scream, or run for cover as the room turned into a storm of accusations, denials, and raw emotion. What should have been a day of love transformed into a battlefield of betrayal. The wedding venue was a picture of elegance. Crystal chandeliers sparkled against the dim golden light. Roses lined the aisle in neat perfection. And guests dressed in their finest attire were ready to witness a union that had been hyped up for months. Everyone had expected glamour, laughter, and romance. But what they didn't know was that behind the glitz, tension had been simmering. Jennifer had planned every detail to perfection. Her gown was breathtaking, the music was enchanting, and her fiancé stood tall at the altar, flashing smiles that seemed confident, almost too confident. Friends whispered about how calm he looked, even though everyone knew his history was complicated. Brandi, sitting not far from the bride's side of the room, looked nervous. She tried to keep her eyes down, sipping from her glass, her hands trembling just enough for the people near her to notice. And then there was Jackie, always the loud voice in the group, always the one unafraid to stir chaos when she felt it was needed. Some guests later said they saw the fire in her eyes long before she opened her mouth. Others whispered that she had been holding back a storm, waiting for the perfect moment to strike as the vows were about to begin. The silence in the room was broken, not by music, but by Jackie's voice, sharp and cutting through the air. "Are we really going to pretend this is a fairy tale?" she reportedly asked, her tone dripping with disdain. The crowd turned their heads instantly, gasps filling the room. Jennifer froze. Clutching her bouquet, she turned slowly, her face pale. "Jackie, not today," she whispered, trying to keep the ceremony intact, her voice trembling yet stern. But Jackie wasn't stopping. "Not today." "You mean not ever?" Jackie shot back, her words echoing in the hall. "Because the man you're about to marry might not just belong to you. He's already tied to Brandi in a way you cannot ignore. While you were busy planning your wedding, he was busy starting a family with her." The silence gasped so loudly it almost sounded rehearsed, while others covered their mouths in disbelief. Someone in the back muttered, "No, she can't mean." But before they could finish, all eyes had already. Fiancé's face drained of color, yet he tried to keep his composure. "This is ridiculous," he said firmly. But the tremor in his voice gave him away. The bridesmaids rushed toward Jennifer, trying to calm her. One friend whispered, "Don't listen. She's trying to ruin your day." But the seed of doubt had already been planted, and everyone could see it in Jennifer's wide, glassy eyes. Fans who later heard about the incident claimed they were left stunned, saying emotions were boiling over so fiercely that it felt like a scene from a scripted drama. But this wasn't television, it was a real wedding, with real stakes. And the tension in that hall was thicker than smoke. Brandi finally stood up, her hands trembling as she tried to defend herself. "This isn't how it looks. It's not fair to put this on me in front of everyone. Jackie, you're crossing the line." Jackie laughed bitterly. "The moment you looked at your friend's man and thought it was okay. Don't try to play innocent now." Jennifer's fiancé stepped forward, trying to take control of the situation. "This is insane. I have never cheated on Jennifer, and I will not stand here and let lies ruin this day." His voice was strong, but beads of sweat lined his forehead. Brandi's lips trembled as she tried to meet Jennifer's eyes. But the bride turned away, tears pooling in the corners of her eyes. "Tell me it's not true," Jennifer whispered, her voice barely audible. "Just tell me she's lying, Brandi." Brandi opened her mouth, then closed it again, the hesitation stretching seconds into an eternity. That silence screamed louder than any words could. Guests were split. Some believed Jackie was stirring drama as usual, while others whispered that Brandi's body language was too suspicious to ignore. Phones discreetly came out, with people texting and tweeting about what they had just witnessed, spreading the fire before the ceremony had even ended. A friend of the groom tried to step in, saying, "This is all rumors. This is just Jackie being messy." But the damage was already done. Everyone was now questioning what had seemed like a flawless union. Jackie, sensing she had the room's full attention, pressed on. "I didn't want to do this here, but you forced my hand. I care about you too much, Jennifer, to let you walk blindly into this. Ask Brandi yourself. Ask her whose baby she's really having." All eyes returned to Brandi once more. Her face was streaked with tears, her hands covering her stomach as if shielding herself from the weight of the accusation. The music that had been softly playing was cut, leaving only the sound of heavy breathing, shuffling feet, and hushed whispers in that moment. The wedding was no longer about vows, rings, or promises. It had turned into a trial with the bridegroom, and Brandi standing in the middle of it all while Jackie played the prosecutor. Emotions were no longer hidden. They were raw, loud, and impossible to contain. What had started as a dream day was spiraling into a nightmare, and no one knew how much darker it could get. The weight of Jackie's words lingered in the air like smoke after a fire. The bride stood frozen in her gown, her chest rising and falling rapidly, as if she were struggling to breathe under the crushing tension. Guests whispered in sharp, urgent tones, their voices overlapping like static. Some clutched their pearls, others exchanged wide-eyed glances, and a few were already discreetly recording on their phones, knowing this moment would be talked about for years. Brandi's trembling hands pressed protectively against her stomach, her lips quivering as she fought to form words. Her silence had already fueled the suspicion, and every second she hesitated only deepened the doubt in the room. Jennifer's eyes burned into her, demanding answers without uttering a single word. Finally, Brandi spoke, her voice breaking as tears welled in her eyes. This isn't the place for this conversation," she said softly. But her refusal to deny the claim outright sent another wave of gasps through the crowd. Jackie seized the moment, stepping closer, her voice sharp and unwavering. "You see that? If she was innocent, she'd say it right now. But she can't, because the truth is too heavy to carry." Jennifer's fiancé clenched his fists, his jaw tight with fury. "Enough, Jackie," he snapped, his voice echoing off the hall's marble walls. "You've ruined this ceremony with your lies. This is nothing but your sick attempt to cause chaos, and I won't let you destroy the happiest day of our lives." But his anger only raised more suspicion. Several guests whispered that his outrage felt more like deflection than defense. One aunt leaned toward another and muttered, "Look at how nervous he is. He's hiding something." Jennifer, her hands trembling, finally broke her silence. "If there's nothing to hide," she said slowly, her voice strained with both pain and determination, "then tell me why Brandi can't deny it. Tell me why she's standing there looking guilty, instead of looking me in the eye and saying it's not true." The groom froze, eyes darting between his bride and Brandi. He tried to speak, but his hesitation betrayed him. The seconds stretched endlessly as the crowd watched in suffocating silence. Brandi sobbed quietly, her shoulders shaking. "I didn't mean for this to happen," she whispered, her confession slipping out like a dagger into the heart of the ceremony. The reaction was immediate. Gasps, cries of disbelief, and sharp murmurs filled the air. Some guests stood, unable to sit through the unfolding chaos, while others leaned in closer, desperate not to miss a single word. Desperate not to miss a single word. Jennifer dropped her bouquet, the roses scattering across the floor like broken pieces of her heart. "You?" Her voice cracked and tears streamed down her face. "How could you do this to me? You were supposed to be my friend, my sister. How could you betray me like this?" Brandi reached out a shaking hand, her words tumbling through sobs. "Jennifer, please, I never wanted you to find out this way. I didn't plan it, it just happened. I was weak, he was there, and..." But before she could finish, Jennifer slapped her hand away, the sound echoing louder than any music that had played that night. Jackie folded her arms, her eyes blazing. "There it is," she declared. "The truth out in the open. And you all thought I was being messy. But I was protecting her. Because she deserves better than to be humiliated in front of the whole world later." The groom, now pale and sweating, tried desperately to regain control. "This doesn't mean anything. It was a mistake, something that should have never happened. But I love you, Jennifer. This day is about us. Don't let her ruin it." But those words only enraged Jennifer further. "Don't let her ruin it." She screamed, her voice trembling with heartbreak. "You ruined it the moment you touched her. The moment you looked at her when you had me. Don't you dare stand there and act like this is just some small mistake." The room fell into chaos. Guests stood arguing among themselves, some siding with Jennifer, others calling out Brandi, and a few defending the groom, insisting that love could forgive mistakes. The once elegant wedding hall now resembled a battlefield of emotions, alliances, and accusations. Brandi collapsed into a chair, sobbing uncontrollably, her hands shielding her face from the torrent of judgmental stares. The groom tried to approach Jennifer, but she stepped back, shaking her head violently, her veil slipping slightly as her tears soaked into the fabric. "Don't touch me," she cried. "Don't come near me. I can't even look at you right now." A bridesmaid hurried forward, wrapping an arm around Jennifer, whispering into her ear to calm her. But the bride was inconsolable. "He was supposed to be mine," she wept, her voice breaking the hearts of even those who had arrived skeptical about the rumors. Jackie, however, stood firm, her eyes locked on the groom. "You don't deserve her," she said coldly. "You're a liar and you humiliated her in front of everyone. The least you could do is admit the truth instead of begging for forgiveness." The groom's voice cracked as he finally confessed. "Yes, it happened. I made a mistake. But I swear I don't love her. I love you, Jennifer. Please don't let this end us." The revelation sent the room into a frenzy once more. Fans who later heard the story online said they were shocked that such a confession came out during vows, describing it as one of the most explosive wedding scandals ever. Jennifer shook her head, her face a storm of anguish. "You say you love me, but love doesn't destroy. Love doesn't betray. Love doesn't break a woman on the day she's supposed to feel like a queen." Brandi, still sobbing, whispered, "I'm sorry, Jennifer. I never wanted to hurt you. I didn't know how to stop it once it started." "Stop it," Jennifer repeated, her voice trembling with rage. "You could have stopped it the first time. You could have stopped it every time. But you didn't. You let it go on knowing what it would do to me." Her words cut deep, and Brandi broke down even further, her sobs echoing across the hall. The groom stood helpless, his hands outstretched but unable to reach the woman he had just shattered in that moment. The wedding no longer felt like a celebration. It had transformed into a stage for betrayal, heartbreak, and shattered trust. With everyone in the audience pulled into the storm, whether they wanted to be or not, the chaos refused to settle. The sound of whispers filled every corner, each one carrying fragments of the scandal that had just shattered what should have been a beautiful union. Phones buzzed as messages flew out of the hall. People were already spreading word of the shocking betrayal. Jennifer stood frozen, her veil slightly tilted, makeup streaked with tears. But her presence commanded attention. The bride who once walked down the aisle glowing with love now stood broken, her heart ripped apart in front of everyone. Her voice finally returned, sharp and trembling. "You knew what this day meant to me," she spat at her fiancé. "You knew how much I trusted you, and you still went behind my back with her." The groom tried to speak, but Jennifer's finger shot up to silence him. "Don't," she warned, her tone laced with fire. "Every word out of your mouth makes this worse. You're nothing but a liar who's been living a double life." Brandi, still hunched over in shame, cried out softly, "Please stop, Jennifer. Please don't hate me forever. I never wanted to ruin you." But Jennifer's glare could have cut glass. "Ruin me? You destroyed me. You weren't just any woman, you were my friend. Someone I let into my life, my family, my world. And the whole time you were betraying me with the man I was supposed to marry. Guests gasped, and some shook their heads, unable to comprehend the magnitude of Brandi's betrayal. One elderly relative muttered loudly enough for others to hear, "This is unforgivable. You don't recover from something like this." Jackie, who had ignited this inferno, stood tall with an expression that blended vindication and grim satisfaction. "Everyone called me messy for speaking the truth," she said loudly, ensuring the entire hall heard her. "But look at what's happening now. I didn't break this marriage. Their lies did. I just brought it into the light." A cousin of Jennifer jumped up, shouting across the room, "Jackie, you've been stirring this pot for years. Don't act like you're some savior now. You live for this drama." Jackie snapped back, her voice dripping with authority. "Don't come for me unless you're ready for facts. I saw the signs. I put the pieces together. I knew something wasn't right. And tonight, the truth confirmed everything. So while you all are busy pointing fingers, remember, if I hadn't said it, should have walked down that aisle blind." Her words sent another ripple through the guests, dividing them further. Some nodded in agreement, believing Jackie had done the right thing. Others whispered that she had chosen the worst possible moment, turning a wedding into a battlefield. Jennifer's sobs grew quieter, but the pain in her eyes burned brighter. She looked at Brandi, her former friend, and whispered, "You're carrying his child, aren't you?" Brandi's silence was the answer everyone feared. She bit her lip, tears streaming down her face, and finally nodded, unable to keep the secret hidden any longer. The room erupted. Shouts of disbelief rang out. Guests covered their mouths, and a bridesmaid fainted in the corner, overwhelmed by the revelation. The scandal had escalated beyond betrayal, was now about a child, a future. A permanent bond between Brandi and the man who was supposed to be Jennifer's husband. "No," Jennifer whispered, shaking her head violently as if refusing to believe what her eyes and ears told her. "No, this can't be true." She clutched her stomach, staggering back as her body trembled from the weight of the revelation. You're carrying the life I should have had. The family I dreamed of." Her fiancé stepped forward, his voice desperate. "Jennifer, listen to me. It was a mistake. A horrible mistake. The baby doesn't change how I feel about you. I still want to marry you, to spend my life with you." His words sparked outrage. "Spend your life with her." Jennifer shrieked, her voice raw. "While your child is growing inside my so-called friend? Are you insane? Do you hear yourself? You've destroyed everything. Our vows, our love, our future, it's all a lie." Brandi covered her face with her hands, sobbing uncontrollably, while Jackie shook her head in disgust. "And this is the man you wanted to build your life with, Jennifer? Open your eyes. He was never loyal to you. He played you and he played her. And the sad part is, he'll never change." The groom exploded, pointing a finger at Jackie. "You're loving this, aren't you? You couldn't wait to see me fall, to see Jennifer suffer. You wanted the spotlight on you, and now you've got it. But don't act like you're the hero here." Jackie smirked, her voice steady. "I don't need to be the hero. The truth speaks for itself. And you," she paused, glaring at him with venom, "you're just the villain who got caught." The crowd roared with agreement, some chanting "liar" under their breath, others shouting "shame" toward the groom. Amid the chaos, Jennifer's mother rushed forward, clutching her daughter tightly. "Baby, we're leaving," she whispered fiercely. "You don't need this man. You don't need this pain. Let's go." But Jennifer pushed her away gently, her eyes fixed on Brandi. "Before I walk out of here, I need to hear it from you," she said coldly. "Do you love him? Do you want to build a life with him?" Brandi's lips quivered as she shook her head. "No, Jennifer, I don't love him. I never did. It wasn't about love. It was weakness, a moment that spiraled out of control. But the baby is innocent in all this." Those words struck the crowd with a chilling reality. The baby, a symbol of betrayal, but also a life untouched by the sins of its parents. Emotions ran high as guests debated whether Jennifer could ever forgive, or whether this wedding had turned into the... Brandi broke down, collapsing to her knees, begging, "Please, don't hate the child. Hate me if you must, but don't take it out on the baby." Jennifer turned away, her veil slipping completely off her head, falling to the floor like the last shred of innocence she carried into this day. "I don't know if I can ever look at you again without feeling this pain." The groom tried once more, his voice hoarse. "Jennifer, please, let's fix this. We can go to counseling. We can find a way through this. Don't let this be the end." But Jennifer looked at him with eyes so hollow, so filled with despair that the answer was clear before she spoke. "The end. It already came the moment you chose her over me. There's no fixing this. You broke me, and you don't get to piece me back together." The hall fell silent. Even Jackie, who had orchestrated the reveal, seemed taken aback by the finality in Jennifer's words. The bride had drawn her line, and there was no going back. The silence that fell over the wedding hall felt heavier than any of the shouting that had filled it moments before. Jennifer stood in the center like a shattered statue, her gown no longer a symbol of joy but of tragedy. The guests barely moved, as though afraid that even the sound of a breath might trigger another explosion. Then came the sound of slow, deliberate clapping. All eyes turned to the back where one of Jennifer's cousins stood. Her face twisted with contempt. "Congratulations," she said mockingly, her voice echoing across the room. "This wedding might be ruined, but at least we'll have a new scandal to gossip about for years. Bravo, Brandi." "Bravo," Brandi sobbed harder, clutching her stomach protectively, while the groom lowered his head, shame flooding his expression. But the cousin's words set off another round of chaos. Half the room shouted insults at Brandi and the groom, calling them traitors. Others turned their fury toward Jackie, claiming she could have handled this privately instead of detonating the truth in front of an audience. Jackie raised her hands defensively. "Don't blame me for the choices they made. I didn't put them in bed together. I didn't make her pregnant. I just refused to let a lie masquerade as love." A guest shot back, "You wanted attention, Jackie? Admit it. You couldn't stand not being in the spotlight. You tore someone else's life apart just to be center stage." The tension grew so unbearable that one of the bridesmaids screamed, "Stop it, all of you. Do you even hear yourselves? This was supposed to be a wedding. Now it's a circus." Her outburst silenced the room briefly, but only for a moment. The groom finally stepped forward, his voice quivering yet desperate to reclaim some dignity. "Listen to me," he pleaded. "I love Jennifer. I never wanted to hurt her. What happened with Brandi was a mistake, one I'll regret for the rest of my life. But I can't undo it now. All I can do is beg for forgiveness." Jennifer's response was cold, her words cutting like knives. "Forgiveness isn't something you're entitled to. You don't get to betray me, humiliate me, and then ask for mercy as if I owe it to you. You took my dreams and burned them in front of me. You're not the man I thought you were. You never were." Those words landed with finality. Fans who later heard about this moment described it as the exact instant the wedding collapsed completely. The moment the love story officially died, Brandi, still on her knees, looked up at Jennifer through swollen eyes. "Wanted this to happen. I never wanted him, not like that. It happened, and now I have to live with the consequences every day." But Jennifer shook her head. "You don't get to paint yourself as a victim. You had choices. You could have said no. You could have respected our friendship. Instead, you chose betrayal, and the consequences you're carrying inside you. That's proof of what you stole from me." Gasps echoed around the room at her harsh words. Some felt sympathy for Brandi, insisting the child was innocent. Others argued that Jennifer had every right to speak her pain. No matter how cruel it sounded, Jackie took a step closer to Jennifer, her voice softer now. "I know you hate me for what I did tonight. But one day, maybe not today, maybe not even tomorrow, you'll look back and realize I saved you from a lifetime of lies. You would have married a man who was already betraying you, already starting a family with someone else." I ripped the mask off before it was too late. Jennifer glared at her. "You didn't save me, Jackie. You humiliated me. You turned my wedding into your stage. You could have told me in private, but instead you chose spectacle. Don't pretend this was selfless, it was cruel. The sting of those words left Jackie momentarily speechless. For once, she didn't have a comeback. Then, from the back of the hall, a new voice rang out low, commanding, filled with anger. It was Jennifer's father, who had been silent until now. He strode forward, his face a mask of fury. "Enough," he thundered. "This wedding is over. My daughter will not stand here another second and be humiliated further. If you care about her at all, you'll leave her alone." His declaration carried weight. Guests began to gather their belongings, some shaking their heads in disbelief, others whispering about how this would dominate social media for weeks. The groom tried to follow Jennifer as her family guided her toward the exit. But her father blocked his path with a single chilling glare. "You had your chance. You destroyed it. Stay away from my daughter." The groom froze, his face pale, knowing any further attempt would only escalate the situation. Brandi remained behind, still trembling, still holding her stomach. Her whispered cries of apology followed Jennifer as she walked out, but the bride never looked back. Her veil, still lying abandoned on the floor, was left behind like a ghost of the happiness that never came. Outside the venue, paparazzi and curious onlookers had already gathered, tipped off by guests who couldn't resist leaking the scandal in real time. Flashes lit up the night as Jennifer was escorted into a car, her tear-stained face hidden behind her hands. Reporters shouted questions, but no answers came. Inside, the groom collapsed into a chair, his head in his hands, while Brandi sobbed uncontrollably. Jackie stood tall, but even she looked rattled, her confidence shaken by the sheer destruction her revelation had caused. The fallout spread like wildfire. Within hours, social media exploded. Clips from the wedding circulated online, each more shocking than the last. Hashtags trended worldwide. Hashtag wedding disaster, hashtag betrayal, hashtag Brandi and the baby. Fans flooded timelines with outrage, sympathy, speculation. "This is the biggest scandal in years," one fan tweeted. "I can believe Jennifer's fiancé got Brandi pregnant. You can't even make this up." Others defended Jennifer fiercely. "She deserves so much better. She walked out like a queen. No man, no friend should ever betray her like that." But some focused their anger on Jackie. She knew exactly what she was doing. She wanted the spotlight, and she